Iawn, bore da pawb.
Good morning all and welcome to this planning meeting.
The Planning Committee being held on the 14th of July 2021. This meeting is being webcast with the exception of any business that the Council resolves to exclude the press and public because of likely disclosure of exempt information as defined by the Local Government Act 1972. I will bring in the legal officer now just to go through declarations of interest, and then we'll go through the rest of the agenda. So I'll bring in Tim Dillon now. Thank you.
Boridar, good morning, members. In relation to declaration of interest, item number 2, members will be aware, no doubt, of the requirements under the Council's Code of Conduct to declare any personal or prejudicial interests in respect of any business to be considered at today's meeting. Such interests should be declared now or as soon as the councillor affected becomes aware that they have a personal or prejudicial interest in today's business. All members declaring an interest are required to state clearly what the interest is and to advise whether it is a personal interest or a personal and prejudicial interest as defined in the Code of Conduct. Any member declaring a prejudicial interest is required to leave the chamber for the duration of the business and can take no part in the proceedings. Members with a personal interest only may take part in the debate and any vote. If a personal and prejudicial interest is declared today that has not previously been disclosed and recorded, the councillor concerned will be required to complete and sign a declaration of interest form, which is available from the committee support staff here today. Thank you. Diolch.
Okay, so I've got Councillor Peter Scott with a hand up.
Yeah, application 8, Chair, Sandy Lodge, the gentleman speaking for, John Horden, I believe used to be a city councillor at St ASAPH. So obviously I know him. It's a tentative. I've not known him for a while. He left the country, but I do know him. So it's just a personal interest. I still think I'll be able to vote and discuss the subject, Chair. That was, thank you.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you very much. And as always, I've got my iPad beside me so I can see all the hands up. So if we can make sure we're using the hands up for that will be ideal. And then if you put them down as and when necessary. Okay, so we have apologies. I've had apologies from Councillor Alan Hughes. Do we have any other apologies? If you just unmute and give any other apologies. Okay, nope, fantastic. We've done the declarations of interest. Number 3 is urgent matters as agreed by the chair. We do actually have one today. So it is something that you were emailed by Judith Williams a couple of days ago. So if you'd like to just, it's not part of your report pack. Obviously, that's why it's an urgent item. So if we just look through that, it is relating to the solar farm. So if you go through on your emails, it is from Judith Williams on Monday, and it says item 3 ada agenda. Okay, and it relates to, like I said, it relates to the solar farm. Okay, so if I just read out what the actual officers are asking for, okay, and then obviously if anyone's got any comments, basically we need to do a local impact report. The deadline is the 27th of July. It has just come to us now. Obviously, usually what would go, this would go out to consultation, and then it would come back to planning committee to ratify it and to say, yep, that's all fine. We can send that off. We do not have the time to do that. What officers are asking is on the bottom of the 4-page report, the resolution. Members are requested to consider the following resolutions. So delegate approval of the final local impact report to officers in consultation with the affected ward councillors. And the second part is submit representations to the planning inspectorate to raise no objections to the proposed Elway solar energy farm, subject to the imposition of conditions set out in the local impact report. So then there is another appendix with a sort of skeleton local impact report that is obviously there for you to see, and there's a couple of maps there as well. So basically, all that we were asking today, or all the officers are asking today, is instead of bringing it back to full council, full planning committee council, It's just going to go to those ward members who are immediately affected by it, because if we don't do that, then we won't basically be able to get anything back to the Welsh government, okay? Because we don't meet again until the timescales have been ridiculously short for this, okay? So there's nothing officers could do apart from this. Does anyone have any comments on this? Have a look. Can't see anyone with their hands up. If what we can do, if nobody has any, if everyone's happy with this, we're okay to go for a vote on this by a lack of people going against it. So if people, do we need a proposer and a seconder? Yeah, so we do need a proposer and a seconder for this, but then we can just go. So Councillor Mark Young, are you proposing?
I'll second, Chair, because it's on my ward and I'll be represented, I believe, hopefully.
Okay, yeah, you will definitely be.
Thank you.
Okay, so it's been proposed by Councillor Mark Young, seconded by Councillor Peter Scott. I'll just give you a few seconds now if there are any dissenting voices. So anyone with any issues around that proposal, speak now. Okay, so that should be long enough to, so that's fine. So we can accept that resolution from officers. Fantastic. We are going to move on now. We've got 5 items on the agenda today. We're going to go in that order because there are potentially public speakers on each item. We have got the blue sheets.
Chair, can I interrupt for a moment? Sorry.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, it's Emirates here. I don't know if other members are having the same experience and the same problems as I am, but there seems to be an imbalance between the volumes between what's coming out of the office and from the members. You sound fairly quiet to me, Joe. I can hear you, but it's only just, it may be different for other people. But when members speak, it becomes a shout down my earphones. I'm just wondering whether you can raise the microphone levels in the office by any chance.
Yeah, Steve.
I can hear clearly, just so as you know, it's not everyone.
Okay.
Well,
Clearly.
I'm the same as Emrys. From Joe Welsh is rather quiet, but Peter Scott was on full volume.
Yeah.
Okay. Steve's just going to have a look at it now. So I'm just going to keep on speaking, and hopefully, is that making any difference? Emrys, is that making any difference?
You're the same.
Okay.
I can hear you, don't get me wrong, but you know, some of us can hear better than others. My hearing is never brilliant, but when somebody else speaks, they're shouting down my ear.
Have you got earphones, Joe?
Well, I'm in the chamber, so I'm on the actual just the mics, so it wouldn't work otherwise, because it would echo all around the chamber if I go on my
Right.
iPad. That's the problem, I think. Anyone else got a problem? I mean, if you can hear me and I'm just quiet, then I think we'll just carry on, as long as it's okay.
Yeah. It's fine. It's fine. Just
Okay.
just that when it switches, I think what Emrys's point is. I think.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. There's obviously an imbalance in the thing. Okay. Right. I'll just make sure I'm trying to speak as clearly as possible into the mic as well. We need to go through the minutes, which I nearly forgot about. So. Agenda item 4 is the minutes, which is pages 9 to 14, to confirm the accuracy of the minutes of the Planning Committee meeting held on the 16th of June 2021. Remember, this is just to confirm the minutes. This is not to go through or have a discussion on any of the items. It is to confirm the minutes. So if we look at the minutes, we have got on page 9, okay, which was just the appointment of the chair and the vice chair. Again, if you have any comments on the accuracy of these minutes, then just speak, just unmute and speak as I go through them, okay? Then we've got page 10, urgent matters, and then we've got the application to Alexandra Drive, which was on pages 10, 11, and 12. And then also on page 12, we've got application number 8. And then page 13, application 9 and 10. And that obviously was an application 10 finished on page 14. Okay, so can we have somebody propose that those minutes are correct? I've got Councillor Bob Murray, thank you. And can I have a seconder for that? I can just, Councillor Julian Thompson-Hill, thank you. And again, we can go for that with any dissenting voices. So unless there's any dissenting voices, we can we can accept that they are a true and accurate record. So just give you a couple of seconds to unmute if anyone needs to. Okay, so we can confirm that the minutes have been accepted. All right, so moving on to the agenda items.
Excuse me.
We've got 5 agenda items today. They've all potentially got public speakers on, so that's the order in which we're going to go through them. There was quite a bit of information on the late sheets that came through from Judith Williams last night. So again, make sure you have that in front of you. Okay, so agenda item 5 is where we are starting. It's on page 15 of our reports. The ward is RUTHIN. The ward members are Councillors Bobby Feely, Hugh Hilditch Roberts and Cynghorydd WAEN. The application number is 02/2021/0179/PF. The proposal is the demolition of existing dwelling and erection of 4 residential apartments with associated parking and rear access. The location is the NOOK, BRYN GOODMAN, RUTHIN LL15 1EL. We do have public speakers for and against this. I know the public speaker against, just so you're very, very clear on this, is a Joe Powell. And Councillor Bobby Feely is going to read out Joe Powell's speech for this. Okay, so this is, and Councillor Bobby Feely, as you may have heard just before the meeting started, is obviously going to speak as a councillor on behalf of herself a little bit later on, but this is purely reading out the speech on behalf of the resident who is against it. In this case, you have the 3 minutes, Councillor Feely, to read out the speech. So when you're ready, you have 3 minutes.
Okay, thanks, Joe, or should I say thanks, Chairman. Just to let the committee know that Joe's father has quite demanding health issues, and she was concerned about he may need her in the middle of the speech. So she asked if I would mind reading out for her, but she has done it all herself. It's all her own work. So I hope it is. I hope it makes its 3 minutes. Okay. So right, I'll start now, Joe. I live in the bungalow immediately next door and below the Nook on the hill of BRYN GOODMAN. I and many residents of the road have objected to this development for several reasons. For us at BRYN, because of the difference in heights of the 2 sites, the existing bungalow is the equivalent of a 2-storey house when viewed from the back of our property. The gable end of a 2-storey apartment block would therefore be the equivalent of a 3-storey building for us, which you can see in the attachment. Also, it would overshadow us all the more as it will be closer to us. We would also be severely affected by the noise and pollution caused by up to 11 cars accessing the 4 parking spaces to the front of the apartment building, the 4 to the rear, and the 3 allocated to the already permitted 4-bedroomed house at the rear of the plot. Not to mention, they're all trying to manoeuvre in a cramped space. Access to all the rear spaces would also be sited alongside the shared boundary and at head height for us, which would be a further nuisance. The resiting in this application of 4 of the parking spaces for the apartments from the front to the rear of the building would make them very close to the house to the rear of the plot. Indeed, the 2 applications would appear to overlap, and the proposed rear parking spaces for the flats in the current application appear to be sited in the same location as the 3 parking spaces for the house. Also, you can see on attachments. Part of the Town Council's objection to this application is that the development would cause an increase in traffic on the road, which is unmade up and used by many pedestrians, including school children from BRYN and RUTHIN schools. Another concern raised by residents is the fact of its being out of character with the road. Indeed, the same objection was raised by RUTHIN Town Council and also at the time the local planning authority in their statement to the original appeal to the previous application, which is accepting the resiting of the parking spaces identical to the current one. Indeed, If the previous application had run its course, Denbighshire Local Planning Authority would have recommended refusal, which you can see on the attachment 5. One of their reasons being that it would constitute an over-intense form of development. In conclusion, a developer will naturally seek to squeeze as many dwellings onto a plot as they are allowed. But I think what the general public look for in these situations is for the planning process as a whole to temper the excesses of developers. I would therefore urge the committee to uphold the objection of the Town Council and Denbighshire County Council Local Planning Authority and the many local residents and refuse permission.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So we have a public speaker 4, which is Rob Jones, who is the agent. So Rob, whenever you are ready, you have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Great, thank you. Okay, I'm ready. Okay, good morning. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to present this proposal before you today. My name is Rob Jones. I represent the building plot. We're the agent for this application and are local to the area, acting on behalf of our client, Roberts Homes. I'm a qualified architect registered with the ARB and a member of the RIBA with over 15 years experience in the industry. Having led the design development, I'm well positioned to provide an overview of the design decisions made to date. In February 2021, an application was submitted to the LPA for the demolition of the existing dwelling and erection of 4 residential apartments with associated parking and rear access. The submission of this application followed a refusal at appeal in November 2020. The inspectorate's views are detailed in the planning officer's report, but in summary, they state that the design of the apartment, which is identical to the application presented today, does not harm the character and appearance of the surrounding area. However, the proposed location and construction of hard surfaces would be a considerable threat to the protected oak on the front boundary. Between the conclusion of the appeal process and the resubmission under consideration here today, we've worked closely with local specialists, ProArb, to develop a revised layout that satisfies the requirements of BS 5837 to ensure that the trees within the site and in the immediate context are not adversely affected by the proposed redevelopment of this brownfield land. This has resulted in a significant reduction of hard standing, relocation of residents' parking spaces to the rear, and a comprehensive methodology detailing the construction of all permeable surfaces and the protection of all trees affected by both the design and the construction. These amendments and the accompanying information have been endorsed by the LPA's tree officer and are reflected in the planning officer's recommendations for approval. We are confident that the inspectorate's observations have been carefully considered and that the revised design presented before you today, supported by the planning officer, has overcome these technical challenges and is in keeping with the character of the immediate area. We welcome the LPA's recommendations for approval and we hope you can support this application. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, there isn't any information on the blue sheets on this one. Before I bring in, obviously I know there's 3 local members, just do officers want to come in on this? Okay, no, okay, so that's fine. Just so you're aware, Paul Mead is not in the council chamber today because he's self-isolating. So there might be a few moments delay. He is there, he's just at home. So there might be a slightly longer delay sometimes just between between us speaking. Okay, so I'll bring in the local member who is a member of planning committee first, and then obviously I can bring in the other 2 local members who I can see are present today. So can Hodder them Liswin, Tisha Dechra?
Yeah,
Would you like to start? Thank you, Chair. I've studied this application very closely since it reached me a few weeks back, and I've reread it last night, and I've started to form my response to the application. As a rule say, we need to decide on the basis of what's stated and shared here today at the meeting. So I'm going to be quiet here and listen to the arguments. I want to hear the views of my fellow councillors from the area and also members of the committee and officers, and then I am ready to come back at the end. Thank you. Right, thank you.
You want to go first?
Councillor Bobby Feely first.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I'd like to add to what Joe Powell has already said. The Nook is at present a modest bungalow in what would be described as a very desirable road in Ruthin. In fact, just to illustrate that, Ruthin and District Civic Association in their monthly quarterly magazine this recently carried a piece headed, I quote, "A street named Desire," pointing out the expensive houses and the sort of seeming rash of some of them coming on the market 4 or 5 of late, and the planning applications in terms of changing of putting houses on the plots. The road is noted for prestigious houses, mainly on large plots. Back in Glyndŵr District Council days, these plots would have been regarded as backland development and not permitted. Now those laws have relaxed and houses on large plots like the Nook are fair game for a shrewd developer to place multiple dwellings, as in this case, 1 modest bungalow being replaced by 5 dwellings, 4 apartments and a house. Currently, there are 24 houses in Jumbo Hill, as it's known locally, 2 of which were built last year. If all those houses on large plots were developed, it could end up with 54 houses in a few years' time. I would just like to point out that Clwyd Powys Archaeological Trust have stated that the existing bungalow on the site is thought to have been constructed in the earlier part of the 20th century. And despite having undergone some renovation in the 60s, the timber frame of the building in Edwardian style is now fairly rare. If this were passed, these proposals were passed, this would result in its demolition, and the trust consider it would be important to retain a record of the structure in its present form prior to demolition, all details of which will inevitably be lost once the building, if the building is levelled. The road itself is unadopted, and the condition makes it almost unusable. When I recently went to visit, I parked my car at the bottom of the hill and walked. It's a very, very, I mean, you'd have to see it to know it, but it is a very, to say unadopted, it's not all about unadopted. It's really almost impossible to go up and down. And if this application were to be passed, it would mean an extra up to 11 cars going up and down, not to mention, of course, the construction traffic, whilst the build is underway, would also be very disruptive and could make the road even worse. On balance, I would like to support Mrs. Powell and other objectors in the road, along with the Town Council, and ask that you consider turning down this application for reasons of it being overdevelopment, unsuitable road condition, and out of character with other properties in the road. The road has no apartments at all in it. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for letting me speak.
Thank you. Councillor Hugh Hilditch-Roberts.
As nobody's contacted me regarding this, Joe, I'd like to come back at the end if possible.
Yep, no problem. Okay. Obviously, Councillor Bobby-Feely has suggested some reasons for refusal, but as she's not a member of committee, that those obviously can't be proposed or seconded by anyone. So just so we're aware of that, there hasn't been anything proposed or seconded by any member of the committee. I haven't got any other hands up. Does anyone else want to speak? If you do, just unmute and come in, as I can't see hands up. Otherwise, Cynghorau Emrys-Wyn, might be your time now then.
Yeah, ydy'r swyddogion eisiau ymateb?
Officers want to respond?
Any points raised by Bobby-Feely? Yep, Paul, I'll bring in Paul Griffin now.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yeah, just there were, say, the key points there that Councillor Feely raised relate to the road conditions, the character of the area, and overdevelopment of the site. There's also reference to sort of the attractiveness of the original building itself. So just sort of go over those issues. The fundamental point on this application is that effectively we've already been through an appeal for a scheme that is, to all intents and purposes, identical to this one. The key difference is that they've taken 4 of the parking spaces from the front and they've put them round the back. The reason for doing that is to overcome the planning inspector's reason for refusing the last application, which was solely impact on the oak tree to the front of the building. They've now demonstrated that the site can be developed without harming that oak tree. So that's why we've got it in front of us. The inspector's decision is quite clear. It deals with character of the area, overdevelopment and the road situation. And if you read it's in my report and it's also in the sort of inspector's decision. The inspector was very clear, and I'll read one of the quotes out. She says, "I do not consider that the number of vehicles entering the plot, including to the permitted dwelling at the rear, would cause significant harm or annoyance to existing occupiers by way of noise and fumes, or from increased amount of traffic in BRYN GOODMAN." So it's quite clear the inspector has already taken a view and said that the actual impacts of this development by way of additional traffic isn't a problem. I think if we went to appeal on that issue, we would struggle to defend that, and I think we would probably have costs awarded against us for the simple reason that we've already had a very clear steer from the inspectorate as to, you know, the impacts of this. The other issue that the inspector deals with is the impact on neighbouring dwellings, in particular Bryn Errol. Now, obviously, we heard Councillor Feely read out Joe Powell's comments, and obviously she raises concern about the scale and the character of the building in relation to their property. Again, we just read one of the sections from the inspector's decision. The inspector concludes, "The proposed development would take a 2-storey side elevation several metres closer to the neighbouring dwelling Bryn Errol, which is at a lower level. Whilst it would be more visible from Bryn Errol than the existing dwelling, I do not consider that it would be so close or so large as to have an oppressive or over-dominant impact on neighbouring occupiers. There would be no adverse impact on dwellings to the rear of the Nook." So again, it's very clear that the inspector at that point has already told us that if you come to an appeal with that issue, there is a very strong chance that another inspector will simply say, "You've already had the view of the planning inspector on this, and yet you've gone against it." That could be seen as unreasonable behaviour, and that could result in costs being awarded against us. And it's a similar story with the character of the area, that the inspector concludes that in terms of the visual impact of it, the site can be well enough landscaped, is well enough screened, would be sufficiently, it would appear to be a large dwelling, such as those that are already visible, has been referred to by the member. So, you know, if we try any of those reasons for the loss of the, you know, to resist this application, I do fear that we would be losing at appeal, and we would face significant risk of costs being awarded against us. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Yeah, I know, you know, it's a good point. This already has been to appeal, so we do need to bear that in mind, obviously, in our deliberations. Councillor
Mr. Wynne, do you want to come in? Yes. Right. I take it that Councillor Hilditch is going to come in after me, is he? Yes, I am. Yep. Right. Having looked at this application, I must be honest with you. The development as a property itself, it looks attractive. I'm not too concerned about the size of the application, size of the building that they intend to build. I'm not going to discuss the nature of the building as apartments, but looking at it visually, it looks as if it takes its place quite comfortably on the site as they intend. My only concern, and the main concern that I have, is that there is overdevelopment on this plot. As Councillor Bobby Feeler has already said, and a number of other residents have said, if you put 5 dwellings where there previously would have been 1, and on the basis of that, I'm very worried about supporting this application because of overdevelopment. I understand what's being said about the view of the inspector about the traffic. If you are going to overdevelop, then you obviously get more traffic. So the decision, the inspector, it carries weight. I'm sure of that, but looking at the whole of it in its entirety, there's an application planning place already been place for building a dwelling further on down the garden. This is affected by this planning. It would all be far more comfortable for me if the original planning application would disappear and we only had one dwelling here. At least that would reduce the elements of overdevelopment. Certainly it would. So I can't see my way free to support this application as it's presented to us today. I know the inspector has her view. Maybe a different inspector would come to a different conclusion. It's hard to say. We cannot be ruled as a planning committee but on the basis of what is with the danger of going to appeal and so forth. I know we need to consider it, I understand that, but I don't think that the inspector has given great emphasis on that element of overdevelopment in her report. I'm ready to be corrected, willing to be corrected, but I can't see my way forward to support this application as presented to us today. Okay. Thank you, Emre.
Proposing that we refuse this then?
I am going to wait to see what Councillor Hilditch has to say.
Roberts, do you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
First of all, I just want it minuted that nobody has contacted me in objection to this, so I have had haven't been consulting with anybody on it. There is the emotional side of this, and there is then I have to take the emotion out of this and have that discussion. The emotion is what Bobby says is, yes, the road is unadoptable, has been for years, but that's the same for every house on that road. We know that situation. The overbearing impact, if you've had a small bungalow, it's going to be a double story, is going to emotionally, it looks to me that it looks, large and overbearing. And that is the emotional side, that when you look at something with the naked eye as a person, as a lay person, that it is going to have an impact on the area. But the significant issue with this particular case is that it's already been to appeal. And for doing my reading is, because I was quite surprised reading the papers that there was quite a lot of objections, but nobody had approached me. But then reading the appeal documentation saying, I have found that the proposed development would not harm the character and appearance of the surrounding area. So already there is a big bold statement from the inspector saying that the proposed location and construction of the hard surface parking area, however, would be a considerable threat to the health and life expectancy of the protected oak tree of the front of the boundary. And the loss of the depletion of this tree was significantly detrimental to the amenity of the area. So what I heard from Paul Griffin is that they have changed this, I believe, Paul, in order to, accommodate what the inspectorate wants. So for me, there's emotion. I totally have empathy with the area and the residents who have objected. However, when I take my emotion out of this and my reality head on, is this has been to an appeal already. If it goes again, it's going to get passed anyway. So what I'm saying is that it's going to delay the process and incur more cost potentially. So I'm summarising a complete empathy with the residents and how they feel, but it's within planning law, because my gut is that the inspectorate would support it if we refused it as a planning committee. So this is a decision for the planning committee to find relevant planning reasons, and Emrys, I think that if you proposed it, what relevant planning reasons that can overcome the inspectorate is what we have to put to committee to be able to change this decision. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, it is a really good point. And I think also we just need to remember that if it did get refused and then it went to appeal and did get go through on appeal, obviously we wouldn't have control over the conditions as well. There are quite a lot of conditions there that we do have control over at the moment. So we just have to be careful of that. Anyway, I'll bring in the legal officer, Tim Dillon.
Yeah. Thank you. Just to echo what the planning officer Paul said before, the issues here, primarily the overdevelopment, etc., they've already They've already been considered by the planning inspectorate, and the planning inspectorate made a decision on that they were not an issue. There's been no material change in those circumstances. The only material change, which is different from before, is in relation to the tree issue situation, and therefore to go against the planning inspectorate's decision, in effect, runs the risk of costs, really, in the event that they decided to appeal, and that's a very real risk, a financial cost against the authority, on the basis of potentially unreasonable conduct for departing from what's already been decided upon. I just thought that would assist members, so thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bobby Feely, you want to come back in briefly?
Yeah, I just wanted to come back briefly. As Emrys rightly said, it could be a different inspector with a different opinion. But the one thing I know about inspectors is, unlike me or Emrys or Hugh for that matter, and any of you, we know our patches like the back of our hand. We know every nook and cranny. We know lots of the people, and we know our area better than they do. I'm trying to look at the future as well as looking at this application, and if this did, if every plot that was big enough had this attitude of putting 5 dwellings instead of 1, it just would not be, it just wouldn't be feasible to have that amount of houses and traffic in this situation, in this part of RUTHIN. I don't think anybody here would object to one house being replaced with another house, you know, a more modern house, a bigger house even, maybe even 2 semis. But to place 5 houses on this plot, that's 20% extra development on that road of houses in one plot. So I appreciate what everybody has said, and I certainly appreciate the difficulties of the planning office and the legal officer says. But I would very much be on the side of refusing this application if that's at all possible.
Thank you. Cynghorydd Emrys Llaw i fyny?
Councillor Smith, hand up there. Yes, just a question for Paul Mead, please, Paul Mead. Could you read any section of the inspector's report that refers to the element of overdevelopment? That's the only reason I have for being against this application. I'm not using any other reasons for what's already been said, and I accept that they have mitigated the matters about the trees and so forth. I have no problem with that. I have no problem with seeing a property being built there. But to be honest with you, the residents in the area don't have a problem with the property being built on the site. Looking at the site, they would wish something to be built there. It's the nature of the property and the development that's what concerns me. Okay, I'll just bring in the officer.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the inspector's decision doesn't actually use the phrase overdevelopment, but I think you have to sort of unpick what the phrase overdevelopment means. Is it that the building is too big for the site? Is it that it uses up too much land within the site? Does it overbear on neighbouring properties? If you take those 3 elements as sort of underpinning the idea of overdevelopment, you have to be clear what you mean by overdevelopment. And I think in this instance, if you take the view overdevelopment is it takes up too much space on the plot, well, in terms of our own guidance, our residential space standards require there to be, for apartment buildings, 50 square metres for an apartment block plus 10 square metres for every apartment. So in this instance, there'd be a need for 90 square metres. Well, the site's got nearly 200 square metres. So again, to say that it would be overdevelopment because it uses up too much of the site is going to be very difficult to argue. You know, we've got more than double what our own guidance and policies require. Similarly, is overdevelopment mean it looks cramped in the site? It squeezes up the buildings? Well, again, the inspector has clearly said that. You know, the comment is it would not appear cramped up against the boundaries because of planting, etc. And if overdevelopment may be because of its impact in terms of there's just too many units on the building, so that would be the comment. So how do you assess too many apartments on the site? Well, that's because there's too many cars. Well, again, the conclusion of the inspector is quite clear, that there wouldn't be a detrimental impact on traffic on BRYN GOODMAN. So if you sort of unpick what overdevelopment actually means into all the different elements, they have been covered, but admittedly the actual word overdevelopment hasn't been used in the inspector's decision. So I think it would be a very hard argument to say it's overdevelopment. I mean, you'd have to be clear if we were to go down a refusal on that line, members would have to be clear what the actual harm is from this development being overdevelopment. What is it you're pointing at? What evidence have you got to say it's too much for that site? I think the members have that in their mind when they're considering this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Can I come back on this one?
Yeah, go on, Emrys.
Yeah, yes. I'll do it in English to respond to you there. As I said, if this was an application on a plot for these four residences only, I would be quite comfortable with it in terms of its design. But we have got planning permission for another property behind it, and that's where lies the overdevelopment argument from my point of view. And that's that it is an active, potential building site. It's had permission. It could happen any time in the next 5 years, and this is where the overdevelopment level comes in my opinion, and that is what's driving me towards that only reason for refusal. It's a case of you damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, unfortunately, with this one. Whatever decision we make, it could lead to another appeal. With appeals, we could win them, we could lose them. I appreciate that, but the system is there to enable us to enable developers to have their rights as well, should they feel a wrong has been done. My personal feeling is that here there is potentially an overdevelopment should the other building permission be activated and be built on as well. At the moment, the current plans is impacting on that development. You can see it overlaps sections of that development. So it is not something that I'm comfortable in supporting. I wish I could vote in favour of it with only that there, with only this application in front of, well, it is this application, without knowing that there is something else in the pipeline. It would be a lot easier for me personally, but at the moment, I'm still focusing on the overdevelopment element. Thank you.
Okay, so are you making a formal proposal to refuse based on overdevelopment? I think
yes, based on overdevelopment only, I propose that this application is refused.
Okay, I can see there's other speakers, but I'm just going to see if there's anyone that wants to second that. If just unmute and second it if you do, because I can't see. Does anyone want? Anne Davis, you're going to second that?
I'll second that.
Okay, diolch yn fawr. Right. Councillor Mark Young, and then I can see Hugh Hilditch-Roberts got his hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So we've heard a lot about what the inspector has and hasn't said. So I just want to make the point that the town council talks about overbearing, and I just want to make the point that that's very personal, and the inspector has one view, but the town council and residents have another, and going from 1 to 5 is a lot, and also you have to take into account the geography of the site. So overbearing, that could be reasonable. So I just want to make the point, we don't just listen to the inspector. The residents have made that statement, and so have the town council. So I just want to make that point. Thank you.
Thank you. Hugh Hilditch-Roberts, and then Paul Mead, I can see your hands up as well.
I was just going to I was trying to get in before Emrys made his recommendations, really. But for me personally, if I was on the committee, obviously I'm not on the committee, and I was refusing this, I would be going down not in keeping with the area, because I think the inspectorate has gone through that it's not overdevelopment. He's accepted that already. The biggest thing here is that there is no, that if you're mindful to refuse it, it's not in keeping with the area, because there are no other apartments in BRYN, GOODMAN, Jumbo Hill as we know it. They are big homes, and they are sort of detached houses. So I think the overdevelopment argument will be countered by any inspectorate. But what I think is the only leg that we have to stand on, if you're mindful as a committee to refuse it, would be on not in keeping in the area.
Okay. Diolch. Paul Mead and then Mervyn Perry after that. Paul, did I come in?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, good morning, everybody. Yeah, it's been a good debate, this one, and I think you've covered all the right areas in the debate, and I understand where Councillor Wynn's coming from in terms of his proposition here. I think there's just a couple of things I wanted to say on it. Really, the other element that we should also focus on here with a proposal where we're increasing the number of dwellings is the sort of housing need. And just to point out within the report, that there will be around £46,000 contribution towards affordable housing in the area, and some £3,000 as well towards open space. So just to balance the arguments out in terms of what is being done here, there is a corporate need for housing, and whilst I understand the local councillors' concerns about the changing in the character of the area, it is a corporate position that we need more housing. So it's just to point out, to try and balance that argument. I think Councillor Hilditch Roberts gave a very fair and measured sort of speech when he addressed the committee in the first instance, because emotion does come into this. I understand that, and when people are used to a certain character in the area, I understand the arguments that are being raised. But I think you've heard from the legal officer, you've heard from Paul Griffin. I think all the words that have been mentioned here in the debate around character of the area, overdevelopment, a difficulty in terms of potentially accessing the site, the impact on the trees. If you've read the report, that the technical issues that have all been covered there are quite clear for you. And I think it's quite a stark thing from me that if we do go back to the inspectorate on this, it's highly unlikely that the inspectorate are going to turn around and make a different decision to what they have done before. So you are running, as the legal officer said, the risk of costs with this. So that was all I wanted to say, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mervyn Parry.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a few points. I mean, there's overdevelopment mentioned on this. I
Turn your camera off, Mervyn. It's just
develop that site. Can you hear me?
Yeah, just turn your camera off. It was a bit crackly.
You'll have to start again, Merv.
Wait a minute. Can't be there now. Right, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just saying that there's the big mention of overdevelopment, but nobody has mentioned underdevelopment. When somebody's doing some work on a site, and if the house is going to be demolished, then we need to maximise what we're doing on the site, because Welsh Government would expect us to utilise the land to its best ability, and putting the apartments on here in the location it is. They will be quality apartments. There will be a demand for them. I can see from the previous work that's been done that the agents and the developers have worked hard on this application to try and get over the obstacles they had with the inspectorate. They're going to be supplying the housing needs in Denbighshire, which we've got, and also, with the commuted sum of just under 50,000, there's going to be a valuable contribution to the community of Ruthin from this development. So I'd propose that we grant this application, Chair.
Yeah, that'll just be that's fine. I don't think we need that to be seconded, because we've obviously got the proposal again, so you would obviously just vote for it. We've had a good discussion about this. We've gone through all the points, so we're going to go to the vote. We've obviously got the reason for refusal. The legal officer and the planning officers have obviously outlined their point on that, but they are obviously material planning considerations.
Chair, can I just come back in response to what Councillor Parry just said? Yeah, I won't keep you. Once again, I need to emphasise, it's not the actual design or the proposal of the proposal we have in front of us, that's affecting my decision on this one. It is quite simply the fact that there is a potential of more properties being on that site as well. That is what you maximise the area for developers, fine. But I think this application alone would stand a good chance of being satisfactory, in my opinion. It is not satisfactory for me simply because it's in addition to another planning permission that's already been granted. I can see how this decision is going to be going. I'm fairly certain of that, but we do owe it to the residents as well, who have got their own views, many of which are in keeping with my own as well. And we are here as members of the planning committee. We have to abide by the rules. We also have to represent our members.
Yep.
That's our residents.
No problem at all. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to go to the vote now. So just to be very, very clear, if you vote for or obliged, you'll be voting for to grant the application in accordance with officer recommendation. If you go an erbyn, against, you are voting against the application. You would be going alongside Cynghorydd Emrys Wyn's reason for refusal. That is against. And then obviously if you amatel, abstain, you are obviously abstaining. Okay, so we will go in alphabetical order. We will start with Councillor Joan Butterfield. I haven't heard you, Joan, if you've said anything.
Muted.
You're on mute.
Sorry about that. I'm in favour of grant.
Thank you. Councillor Ellie Chard.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Davis.
An erbyn.
Diolch. Councillor Peter
Against.
Evans. Okay. No, not present. That's fine. Okay. Councillor Brian Jones.
Against.
Councillor Tina Jones.
Against.
Cynghorydd Gwyneth Kensler.
Councillor Gwyneth Kensler.
Obliged. Obliged. Diolch. Councillor Christine Marston.
For.
Thank you. That's 4. Councillor Melvin Mile.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Bob Murray.
4.
Councillor Mervyn Parry.
4.
Councillor Paul Penlington.
4.
Councillor Pete Prendergast.
4.
Councillor Peter Scott.
4.
Councillor Tony Thomas.
4.
Councillor Julian Thompson Hill.
4.
Councillor Joe Welch. 4. Cynghorydd Emrys Wyn.
Councillor Emrys Wyn. Against.
There you go. Yeah.
What did you say, Mark?
Yeah, 4.
Thank you. Okay. If I've missed out anyone, just say say now before I read out the results. Yeah. Okay. So the Cyfanswm total, obliged 4 is 14. An erbyn against is 4. Amatel abstain is 0. Therefore, that application has been granted in accordance with officer recommendation. Moving on to agenda item number 6. This is on page 55 of our reports. The ward is RHUDDLAN. The ward members are Councillors Anne Davis and Councillor RHYL Roberts. The application number is 44/2021/0163/PO. The proposal is the development of 0.21 hectares of land by the erection of 4 dwellings and construction of access road. Outline application including access, appearance, layout and scale. The location is the land at Part Garden of the Rise, RHYL Road, RHUDDLAN, RHYL LL18 2TL. We have speakers for and against this, so I will bring those in initially, and then we will discuss things like the site visit and other things like that. So we have a public speaker against, which is a Robert Williams. So we're just trying to find out if Robert Williams is here. No. If you are here, then unmute and say so. No. Okay. So and we haven't had an email in or anything with the speech or anything. No. Just to be clear to members, what we do is if people have technical difficulties or believe they're going to have technical difficulties, we do ask them to send their speech in and we will read them out on their behalf. So just so that everyone is given a fair warning. So and this person hasn't accepted the invite either. So so there's nothing we can do about that. Okay, so we have a public speaker 4, which is Rob Jones, which is the agent, who you may remember from half an hour ago. So when you're ready, you have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Thank you. Thank you again for giving us the opportunity to present this proposal before you today. The building plot of the agent for this application, acting on behalf of our clients, Mr. C. Roberts and Mrs. J. Goodrick. Having led the design development, I'm well positioned to provide an overview of the design decisions made to date. In February 2021, an outline application was submitted to the LPA for the development of 0.21 hectares of land for the erection of 4 dormer-style properties, including the associated access. The submission of this application followed a refusal at appeal in November 2020. The inspectorate's views are detailed in the planning officer's report, but in summary, they state that previous design of a 2-storey nature was considered uncharacteristic of the immediate area by reasons of size and scale. Between the conclusion of the appeal process and the resubmission under consideration today, we have worked hard to prepare a proposal that addresses these concerns, which is reflected by the officer's recommendations for approval. In addition to the amendments made prior to the submission, other areas of redesign raised through consultation have been incorporated during the application process. Careful consideration has been given to the design of the dwellings in respect of siting, layout, scale, and aspect. In principle, the properties have been resized from 2-storey, 3- and 4-bedroom dwellings to dormer-style 3-bedroom properties. As a result, the footprint of these properties has been scaled back significantly and now falls slightly below the average of the surrounding dwellings directly adjoining the site. Similarly, the scale of the proposed properties fall below the corresponding ridge lines of the dwellings directly adjacent to the south of the site and sit comfortably within the local topography and immediate context. Interface distances have been respected to all adjoining properties to ensure that the proposal does not unacceptably affect the amenity of local residents. We are confident that the inspectorate's observations have been carefully considered and that the revised design presented before you today, supported by the planning officer, is in keeping with the character of the immediate area. We welcome the LPA's recommendation for approval and hope you can support this application. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you very much. Okay, so there is a little bit of information on the blue sheet. Just before I bring in the local member, we did go to a site panel meeting on Friday, July the 9th at 2 p.m. So you can see there's a little bit of information there. Does anyone who was on the site visit want to comment on the site visit just before bringing the local members? Just because obviously the whole point of a site visit is that a selection of the committee go to, representing, and then obviously can feed back to the whole committee. So if anyone who's on the site visit wants to unmute, so Councillor Christine Marston's going to come in first.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say that we did attend a site meeting. It was very informative. What I found that the access is really very tight. They're clearly going to take down a garage to allow access to the back garden of the rise. And to me, it seemed very, very tight. It's a very wooded, lovely garden, lovely spot, an oasis amongst in the middle of RHUDDLAN. Yes, it was very interesting, very informative. I do feel that these dwellings, the 4 dwellings, would be quite sort of have an impact on the dwellings to the south of the site. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else on the site visit before I bring in the local member? Councillor Paul Pennington.
Thank you, Chair. I'd agree with what Christine has just said. I don't think it was actually it was good to go on a site visit. You get a much better picture of what they were looking in situ than you would from looking at the plans. The access road, in my opinion, would be far too narrow. There's a number of mature trees that are going to be taken out, and I know that's not really a planning consideration, but it is a shame because they are probably 40, 50 or more years old. And any subsequent planting will not match that level for probably ever, actually, because trees planted in concrete and tarmac don't thrive too well. The fact that in our dormer style property is, in my opinion, slightly irrelevant, as they're still 2-storey properties at a considerable height, a much greater considerable height than the properties they will overlook. And yeah, it's a shame. I mean, that you could fit a number of bungalows in there, but that's a completely different issue. But yeah, I'm minded to vote against it at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Penlington. Yeah, it was a very informative site panel meeting. Okay, so obviously there is a bit of information on the blue sheets there that hopefully you've managed to look through. I will bring in, I think Cynghorydd Arwel Roberts is not able to join us today. He did send in some representations just saying that he was, I'm not sure how many people have actually seen that, but it was the general gist of things was he was against the application. Obviously, he's not a member of planning committee, but I'm just letting you know that that was the other members' view on it. Councillor Ann Davis, if you want to come in now, you obviously are a member of planning committee, and if you'd like to come in now and speak on the item.
Diolch yn fawr, Mr Cadeirydd. I'll switch my video off so that you hear me possibly better. There we are. I have a few concerns regarding this proposed application. Mainly the impact this development will have on the adjoining properties by way of overlooking directly into their bedrooms and bathroom and living space and the rear garden. Loss of light and privacy that they will suffer. Now, there is very little space between these proposed new properties and the existing properties. Very little space. And these new properties, Dormer, to me, as Councillor Paul Pennington mentioned, are very similar to a house. They were tower approximately 2 metres over the bungalow, over the existing bungalows, and it would be impossible to screen that at all, to have the privacy. Most of these bungalows are single story surrounding this site, and they are occupied by mainly elderly retired residents. Now, the access, I have serious concerns about this. They will have to demolish a single garage to gain access to this back garden. So as you can imagine, that will be the width of this new road. There's very little room to turn. So inevitably, vehicles will have to reverse. There's very little turning spaces, and I wonder how emergency vehicles would cope on this narrow road. To make this new access, they'd gain access down a service road, which really is only just about wide enough for 2 cars. So if the residents in Highlands Close park on the road, that means there will be no room for 2 cars to pass or emergency vehicles. Now, when we entered the rear garden, a beautiful garden, and it's a long rectangular garden, which is surrounded mostly by single bungalows again. And there were many lovely mature trees in this garden, which will have to be felled, obviously, if this application is granted. I think I counted up to 50 trees in that garden, and obviously, many of these will have to be felled. I'd like to read a quote from Denbighshire County Council made in November 19th, which states, "We have an ecological crisis in Denbighshire and need to plant 18,000 trees in the next few years. These trees have a significant benefit. And another reason it concerns me is the flooding in this area. As we know, when trees are removed, we do get flooding, can get flooding. Now, RHUDDLAN, the drains in RHUDDLAN are very old, and since the new development on Tirionba has taken place, we've had an awful lot more reported floodings. We've had sewer pipes burst in the area, and this is a big concern. I would like to remind members that a very similar application was refused on appeal in November 2020. Very little difference to this application we're looking at today. And the main reason was the character and appearance of the surrounding area. I sincerely hope that the committee looks favourably at the many objections that residents have sent in, the town council's objections and the both local members. I would like to propose that this application is refused, and I will give my reasons later. Diolch yn fawr, Mr. Cadeirydd.
Okay, diolch yn fawr, thank you. I have got a few hands up to speak, so obviously that's been proposed. We won't ask for a seconder yet because obviously it's we haven't got the reasons for it yet, so it wouldn't be fair on a seconder to second it without knowing the reasons. So we can come back to that in a little bit. I've got Councillor Ellie Chard first.
Morning all. I was quite fascinated visiting the RHYL, and I am concerned about the entrance exit to the site. And of course I know the garage is going to be knocked down, but the width, it's not good. It's not good. And I just really feel that the cul-de-sac Highland Close is not good, because people retire to RHUDDLAN and, you know, there's ambulances and fires engines and things. There's no room, absolutely no room. And coming down into Highlands Close and then cutting through the existing front garden, then through to the garage, which is being knocked down. I mean, it's a beautiful setting, and I just felt that the emergency services won't be able to handle this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mark Young.
Thank you, Chair. I'll turn my camera off if that's okay. So Councillor Davis just touched on it. So if officers can come back on the details of the planning history, because it's quite clear our decision then. It's also clear on the decision of the inspector. In the last application, we gave that considerable weight. So we don't seem to have done that here. So if they can just give me myself and other committee members clarity on the history and also the inspector's decision, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll just bring in Mervyn Parry as well, and then I'll bring in officers. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a couple of questions to answer from me, similar to Mark Young, really, on the height of the property. So there's obviously local members' concerns about the difference in height of the properties. Could officers maybe come back and clarify that one? And with the entrance, obviously there's concerns to the entrance on this site. Is anybody from Highways on planning today that could maybe talk us through that one to give us their thoughts on the highways there? And could they also confirm, as the speaker 4 said, that the new houses proposed are slightly smaller than the existing houses in the surrounding area? So just so the ones who didn't see it could get a flavour on that one. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's no problem. I mean, it seems like the discussion is obviously around the overbearing impact on neighbours and the access. So they seem to be the sort of two material planning considerations being discussed. So I'll just bring in the officers on that now.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try and cover those points as simply as I can. The first one, I think a lot of the concern, and it was something that was observed at the site panel, is the suitability of the access, and in particular the width of the driveway that would serve the site. My understanding is that there's more concern regarding the actual access within the site as opposed to the actual junction with the public highway itself. To the end of to that point, the public highway has the relationship between the site and that. 4 additional dwellings using that junction off Highland Close onto the main road. The highway officers haven't raised any objection. A lot of work's been done on that, a sort of an assessment. They've had highway consultants to look at it. So in terms of the number of vehicles, additional vehicles that will be entering onto the public highway at that point of Highlands Close, there's no objection. My understanding is that members are concerned about the width of the driveway, and there's clearly, if you look at the plans, there is a pinch point towards where the driveway passes the actual existing dwelling. So I think if I'm going to refer you to the site plans at the top of the report, you can see how the access comes in off Highland Close. What I would point out there is you'll notice that the actual width of that access is the same width as Highland Close itself. So that service road that I know site panel observed, you can see that extends down, then they'll be clearing some vegetation, and then they bring the driveway in along the side, demolishing the garage. Well, that width remains the same throughout the site. So I would ask members to consider that if that actual public highway on Highlands Close works, why wouldn't it work going up along the side of the rise? So I think in terms of the access and the suitability of the driveway, I think members should consider that. What is the difference between the existing situation on Highlands Close and what's now being proposed as, to all intents and purposes, a private extension of Highlands Close? Okay, so hopefully that's covered or steered you in the direction when you're considering the access issues. The next main point that I picked up on from members was the sort of scale and height of the proposals. Well, essentially, the previous permission was 2-storey dwellings at 7.5+ meters. What we're now looking at is dormer bungalows, 2-storey, effectively. Yes, you're quite right, but they have a ridge line of 6 meters, so they've been reduced by over 1.5 meters to what was previously refused. It was indeed the inspector commented that 7.5 meters was excessive and would be out of character with the area. So that's the key thing. They've tried to address that. They've reduced the ridgeline. I think that's for members to reach a conclusion on. Has that been reduced enough? Are we out of character? I think I'd steer you to the cross sections further down in the report on page, bear with me, I'm just scrolling through to find it. On page 31, I think it is, under section 1.2. So you can see we've included the cross sections there. What should be noticed, I think, is that
it's page 88.
Is it page 88? Sorry,
in the
I'm
report.
opening
Yeah, no, that's
separate
right.
section.
Page
there.
88 in your full report.
Thank you, Chair. Good job you're here. Yeah, so you can see the sections there. I think the one that probably gives you the clearest view is the second cross section, where you can see the proposed dormer bungalows being slightly shaded. So you can see it to the left. As you come in from the left, you've got the rise, that's the main building, and then you've got the proposed ones. If you look through the site, you can see the ridge lines of the lower dwellings on Howell Avenue. So again, members should reach their own conclusion there on whether that sort of discrepancy, yes, they will be slightly higher in part, but that gets less as the site goes on. Is that so sufficient as to be out of character with the development of the area? Effectively, the area is characterised by bungalows, some are dormer bungalows, and there are obviously some larger buildings there. With regard to what the agent commented on, the average roof height, well, we're not actually aware of which dwellings they've used to make that calculation. How wide did they throw the net? Did they include every house within 500 meters? Of course, we're going to get a different figure. So all I would say is maybe not place too much weight on that, but actually look at what you can see in front of you. There are photographs there that show the height and the sort of scale and design of the existing dwellings around the site, the immediately adjacent ones. Yes, in places these will be higher, but is it so sufficiently high as to be harmful to the point where it would support a refusal? And I think that then really leads us into, I think Councillor Parry asked us for a bit of Councillor Young asked for some details of the planning history. The previous application was different. It was for 4 2-storey dwellings. They were significantly higher. The arrangement within the site was slightly different, but the access was the same. The inspectors, obviously, when they look at an application, they don't solely focus on the reason of refusal that the planning authority has put forward. They look at any third-party comments, and they also take into account, they have to make sure that they've given due consideration to all the material considerations. They don't necessarily allude to that clearly within their decisions. My interpretation of the officer's report is that of the inspector's report is that there was no objection to the access. The loss of trees was taken into account and not deemed to be an issue. It was purely the scale. So again, like the last application, we're starting to look at what have we managed to defend at appeal, what have the inspector found to be a problem. Scale is your key issue here. I think also you should look at the previous layout. it was a different layout. The orientation of the two-storey dwellings was different to what we're now looking at now. So although previously the inspector has said that separation distances could be achieved, we are looking at a different scheme. Now, the officer's report's clear that the separation distances on the scheme we are now looking at now is broadly in line with what our supplementary planning guidance refers to. So there's that 21 metres approximately between the windows of the proposed dwelling. So key issue there would be the dormer windows looking towards those dwellings on to the south on Howell Avenue. That's approximately 20 to 21 metres. So the officers obviously come to the conclusion that given our guidance, given the relationship between the dwellings, this is acceptable, and we would struggle maybe to defend that at appeal. We would have to find a reason as to why it would have to exceed our guidance in this instance. So I hope that's covered the points in the main. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's very clear in terms of where we would be, where we were looking at. So Councillor Ann Davis, obviously you proposed to refuse. Would you like to come back with your reason or reasons for refusal?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, could I come back there, please? And could I show members the windows that will be overlooking the single-storey bungalows on BRYN? I don't know if you have a copy of one, but here we are. Now, these dormer bungalows, to me, that looks more like a house. Do you have this where you could put up on screen, please? The windows that will be facing BRYN. It's impossible to not to overlook. Of course, these will look. Yeah. These windows are straight windows, not Velux windows, and they will look right into the garden of the adjoining properties.
Yeah. Obviously, the an overbearing impact on neighbouring properties. So, are you happy to keep that as your? I mean, again, it's perfectly sensible and valid to just have one reason for refusal. So, are we happy? You happy having that as a reason for refusal? And then
no, I'd like my reason for refusal, Mr. Chairman, to be over intensification, completely out of character with the area, highway safety and access safety, please.
Okay, so effectively, sort of, we're just gonna we'll just clear that up. So it's two reasons really. It's, yeah, the issue around the access one is, as I mean, I totally understand your point. I was there on the site meeting as well. The issue around that is obviously that this application has gone to appeal, and there has been a determination on the access, and the inspectorate has said that it's okay. That's not, I'm not saying you definitely can't have it, but it is obviously the legal officer would be saying that that runs a great risk of costs, because obviously because it has actually been determined at appeal. Obviously with the height was refused on the 7.5. It's gone down, but your opinion as possibly other members who might want to refuse it alongside yourself is that it hasn't gone down enough, and there's still an overbearing impact on the neighbour. I don't know if you want to continue with the access one or not.
She turned out.
And Councillor Ann Davis, do you still want to go with the two reasons?
Yes, please.
Okay. Do we have a seconder for that? So you would be proposing for a refusal with those two reasons. Councillor Paul Pendleton?
Yeah, I'm happy to second that, Chair.
Okay.
Can I make comments on that, or shall I just second it?
Yeah, no, you can make a comment, yeah.
The planning inspectorate refused on the grounds it's originally because they were two-storey buildings. Describing this as a dormer bungalow does not negate the fact that it's still a two-storey building. It's just got a slightly different style of roof. Yep. There's a slight difference of a metre or so, but they still not quite, but almost tower over the adjoining bungalows around it. The whole square is surrounded by bungalows, which are very low-level bungalows, actually. This is going to be a massive impact. 4 huge houses, literally looking straight into people's gardens, straight into people's back windows, and I don't think it's acceptable.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we've had the proposal, it's been seconded, so we're going to go to the vote. So again, just to be very, very clear, if you vote for this, you are voting alongside officer recommendation to grant planning permission. If you vote against, you'll be going against officer's recommendation. You'll be going alongside the proposal to refuse by Anne Davis for two reasons, or for the stated before. And obviously you can vote to abstain. Okay, so hopefully we're all very, very clear on that. So again, alphabetical order, Councillor Joan Butterfield.
Against.
Thank you. Against. Councillor Ellie Chard.
Against.
Councillor Ann Davis.
Against.
Councillor Brian Jones.
Against.
Councillor Tina Jones.
I'll have to abstain because I ran out of battery, sorry.
Thank you. Cynghorydd Gwyneth Kensler.
Councillor Kensler. Against.
Councillor Christine Marston.
Against.
Against. Councillor Melvin Mile.
Against.
Councillor Bob Murray.
Against.
Councillor Mervyn Parry.
We'll go for it.
Thank you. Councillor Paul Penlington.
Against.
Councillor Pete Prendergast.
Against.
Councillor Peter Scott.
Against.
Councillor Tom Thomas.
Against.
Councillor Julian Thompson Hill.
Against.
Councillor Joe Welch. I'm for. Cynghorydd Emrys Wyn.
Councillor Emrys Wyn. Against.
And Councillor Mark Young.
Against.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll just count up the results here. 1, 2. So we have, is it? We've got 15. So we've got 2 for, 15 against, and we've got 1 abstain. So that application has been refused for the reasons stated. Okay, it is, if we have a 5-minute break, it's time to do it. Literally, if we can be really, really quick, because we have got quite a lot. It might take quite a long time to get through the rest. So literally back at 11, if that's okay, just a quick break. Seven. It is on page 99 of our reports. The ward is RHYL South East. The ward members are Councillors Brian Blakely, Councillor Brian Jones, Councillor Cheryl Williams. The application is 45/2018/1215/PF. The proposal is the erection of 109 dwellings and associated works, phase 5. The location is the land at RHYL South East between Broadegg and DYSERTH Road, RHYL. And we do have a public speaker 4, who is Hayley Knight, who's the agent. So Hayley, yeah, is in. So when you are ready, you will have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Morning, thank you, Chair. Good morning, councillors, and thank you for this opportunity today. The scheme before you is seeking permission for 109 new homes on the final phase of Aberkinsey Park to the southeast of RHYL. The site is allocated for a future residential use in the council's adopted local development plan. Therefore, as set out in your officer's report, the principle of developing the site is established, and the main planning issue is the scheme design. The applicant team have worked hard with your planning and technical officers to ensure that the proposals are appropriate for the site. As a result, the scheme comprises of a mix of 1, 2, 3 and 4 bedroom homes designed to meet local housing need, both on the open market and affordable tenures. 11 of the proposed homes will be made available on affordable housing tenures, and these comprise of 1, 2 and 3 bed homes. 3,600 square metres of open space will be included, which includes an equipped area of play for children. And overall, our approach to landscaping this site has been supported by the Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty Joint Committee. In order to accommodate the development, there is the need to divert public rights of way that cross the site. And again, we've worked with your officers and the Ramblers Association to ensure that the diversion routes are located to minimise disruption and are surrounded by soft landscaping where possible. This approach is considered to be acceptable by both parties, and the diversion order will be made shortly. The scheme is supported by a suite of technical reports which have addressed all of the queries and concerns of your consultees. This includes highways and ecology reports, and to reiterate, the council officers have no highway concerns. As a developable area of the scheme has remained the same throughout the changes submitted, the ecology surveys and reports are wholly relevant to the scheme before you. Furthermore, this site is covered by an existing Great Crested Newt licence, which also relates to the wider Aberkinsey Park development. Considering this together with the biodiversity enhancement measures proposed, which include bat and bird boxes, mammal-friendly boundary treatments and native planting, this scheme is considered to be suitable in respect of ecological impacts. In conclusion, the scheme will see the completion of the council's allocation to the southeast of RHYL in accordance with the adopted LDP, ensuring to boost the borough's housing land supply and provide much needed homes for local people. Should you be minded to approve the scheme today, the applicant will also enter into a legal agreement with the council to provide 30% affordable homes, £465,000 towards new school spaces, and over £36,000 for off-site open space enhancements. Given that the scheme is compliant with policy and will provide many benefits for the local community as I have set out, I respectfully ask that you grant permission today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There is quite a bit of information on the blue sheets. You've obviously got the head of highways in our reports. It had just said verbally no objection and then waiting the report. So it's obviously there in the late representation. Some additional information based on RHYL Town Council's concerns is on the blue sheets as well. The City Town Community Council on page 113 said there was an objection unless the following are met, and obviously those 5 points have been answered by officers in the late sheets. There is another additional condition as well. So if any members are thinking of wanting to propose something, obviously you just need to be clear about whether they want to include that additional condition 10. Do officers want to come in on this? I think probably okay with going out to members. So there's 3 local members. I'll bring in the local member who's a member of the committee first. So that if they want to come in now, it's Councillor Brian Jones.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good morning, everybody. Just a couple of points and observations from me, and maybe some answers might be forthcoming. In the late rep sheet there, the reference to the B519 locally is the Dizzy Bends, and the cost to make the alterations to that to make it safe. It is regarded as one of the most dangerous roads in the county. I'd be eager to hear, I don't know if there is any traffic officers with us this morning, has anyone got a handle on what the cost that would need to be spent on this road to make it safe? Because as I've just said, there is grave concerns at the moment. There is accident data to back that up. I'm not just sort of making that up. And so that's certainly one question that does raise an eyebrow, bearing in mind that one of the accesses will be onto the Dizzy Bends, as I refer to it. I've got another question on jumping to the pre-commencement conditions, reference the route of the vehicles. Could we have any more information on that, do you think, on how that will work? Again, the details and the data when it's put before you at a meeting like this, it all looks hunky-dory, but when you're on the ground and you know the area and you know the nooks and crannies, I could see that being an issue. Not in any way to diffuse this planning application, but it is a matter that needs attention. I wanted to make a note on drainage and flood matters, 4.2.5 in the report pack there. It's only a personal view, this. There is issues on Aberkinsey with flooding to nearby houses that occupy next to Aberkinsey. That's been ongoing. And it's never been solved, so that's something down the line that could, well, it's ongoing now. There is a problem there now, and this development could kick up more issues in that vein. There's also again going back to the access at Broad Dead 1.1.5. There's a little roundabout there at the moment, which is used in various ways by the traffic. With the increase in traffic, that could become, that will need some work, that will need looking at that. It'll
probably end up being like a magic roundabout like they got in Swindon. So that's an area of concern as well. On the big plus side of things, obviously the funding that's in the pot, circa 400,000 for a school development, community centre, open space. Hopefully at some point in the future they will come to fruition there. That will be good. That will be good news, and it'll be welcome news. So if I could have an answer to a couple of those points, that'll be that'll do me, as they say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll let the other local members speak first, and then I'll bring in the officers, and then I'll bring in other members, okay? If that's all right. So Councillor Brian Blakely, you've got your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to carry on from where Councillor Brian Jones was saying, can I take you back to 2003, when we first discussed the problems with the Aberkinsey site on the building of that under the LDP. We discussed at that time a feeder road that was supposed to go in from the Sainsbury's roundabout right through to Coast Road, coming out at Robin Hood Camp. The whole idea was to that any new development, i.e. Aberkinsey, would feed into that road to take away any existing traffic, would go through to Pennymice Avenue, Trek Llewellyn Road, and into Incoming Road and onto DYSERTH Road. At that time, a question I asked to the chair, who's not with us anymore, the planning officer, was that, yeah, that road would be needed, but it couldn't go ahead at that time because the funding wasn't there. The only way they could find the funding was once the Aberkinsey site was being built. The money from that under 106 would go towards the cost of that road. Of course, that was withdrawn. That never happened. So the first 4 phases of the Aberkinsey went ahead. Since that's gone ahead, we are now two feeder roads would be Brodegg, and as Brian said, there's it's a nightmare. We've got this all this extra traffic, which is feeding in to the roads that I mentioned before, mainly into Pennymice Avenue. We've just gone through a major problem there with the amount of traffic it's feeding from Pennymice Avenue onto DYSERTH Road. Hopefully some of that's been sorted out by putting in double yellow lines because of the build-up of traffic in the morning and in the afternoon. Worry now with me, and I'm not against the site, don't get me wrong, as the should I say, homeless champion, we do need extra housing. We have enough people on our streets that need housing problems with young people these days that we do need to rehome. Problem I see it at this moment in time with another 107 houses, there's going to be double that amount of cars. We have children that need schooling. We have our school at Ysgol Llewellyn, which is full at this moment in time. We do not have enough healthcare. We do not have enough doctors. We do not have enough dentists. So where are all these people going to go? As I said before, my main problem is highways. Now we're being told there's no problem with that. I don't believe that. I think we need to look at ways and means of being able to make our roads safer, being able to cope with this extra development. It's not coping now, and I'm sure it's not going to cope in the future. That's where these are my worries here. I think we need to look at these. They need to be looked at now before this development goes ahead. As a guest chair, I'm not against the development. I'm for the development, but my concerns are highways, number 1, our schools, number 2, healthcare, number 3, because we got all these extra people. Where are they going to go? Are they going to be able to get in the doctors? Are they going to be able to get registered with the hospital? Are we going to find a dentist? I'll leave it at that, Chair. This is my concerns as one councillor for the South East Ward of RHYL. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, no, that's very clear. Councillor Cheryl Williams, you haven't got your hand up, but do you want to come in as local member at this point?
Yeah, I'm in full agreement with both
members here on the, well, mostly with Brian Blakely on the health side and things like that. But there's one thing that they say on this list here that there's no bus route through the area, but there, I don't know if it still does the same now. There used to be one that used to go as far as the roundabout and turn left. So it is essentially hidden traffic there. And like, I do agree, we need more schools being built, more health, you know, doctors and that, things like that. And I just see that the over intensification of the traffic is a massive issue. And I'd like to see that regularly reviewed if possible, please.
Thank you. Okay, do officers want to come in at this juncture?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm going to handle this one. Yeah, I think there's a couple of points been made there by Councillors Brian Jones and Councillor Brian Blakely around the sort of general highway infrastructure issues. One being the DYSERTH bends, and the other being a sort of historic ideal, if you like, to sort of try and provide a feeder road around the site leading, linking it into near the Sainsbury's roundabout. I mean, what I would say on that is that obviously this is the 5th phase of an allocated development here that's within your local development plan. So when the local development plan was adopted, the allocation here for this land to be developed for housing would have looked at all the highway issues, all the sort of highway options. In addition to that, what's happened with this particular site over the course of a number of years as it's been developed, there's been a sort of legal agreement with the initial phases to make certain highway improvements along the way. So what we've done is we've not relied upon sort of data from 2001 and 2002. The data has been updated, it's been reviewed, transport assessments have been looked at again in relation to the compliance with the legal agreement in terms of highways. So what you've got there from Mike Jones, your sort of traffic manager on this, is quite a clear statement that, you know, all the infrastructure has been looked at. This is phase 5 of a development that's within your adopted LDP, and that the implications on the highway network are acceptable. So I think that's the point I'd make on the sort of strategic highway issues. Notwithstanding, clearly there is going to be local issues and local concerns and pinch points, etc. But fundamentally, it's allocated in your LDP, and from a highways perspective, it's acceptable. Councillor Brian Jones raised the issue around the planning condition on details of construction traffic and construction management. Well, again, that's a sort of standard condition that we impose. We get the applicants will submit details of their construction management arrangements. We can then liaise with the local members on those arrangements, and if local members want to bring that issue back to planning committee, they're more than entitled to do so further down the line. And if they've got any ideas as to sort of operational hours and construction sites and sort of compounds, etc., that can all be dealt with through that particular planning condition. Again, the issue of flooding was raised. Again, it's all about an evidence base, this, isn't it, in relation to whether we can deal with this particular application, which is for 109 dwellings on an allocated site as part of a phase 5 development. If we've got any evidence to refuse that application that's before you now on the issue of flooding, well, again, we've gone to all the relevant specialist consultees on that. Yes, there's always going to be sort of isolated incidents in really bad weather throughout RHYL. You know, that's what we're hearing at most planning committees. But is that enough to refuse planning permission that's before you? Again, your officers don't think so. I think the other general point that was raised there was about infrastructure and the infrastructure issues regarding sort of schools, healthcare. Well, again, I refer you back to how LDPs are adopted, and going back to the adoption of the LDP, those things would have all been looked at, and therefore, when this site was originally allocated for housing, the impacts on infrastructure would have had to have been looked at then. Based on the original outline scheme here, and again, the legal agreement that is attached to that, there is the requirement for land for a school to be provided as part of this development. It's not happened as yet. The reason for that being that our own education department hasn't brought that forward as yet, but that still remains within the governing legal agreement. So a school, primary school, is earmarked to be built as part of this RHYL South East development. In addition to that, however, in relation to the application that's before you today for 109 dwellings, the applicants are proposing to meet your education SPG guidance and provide us with around £465,000 in addition to the provision of the land for the school. So again, looking at the infrastructure implications, everything is being done in line with your adopted policies and guidance. And we've really got no evidence within the report from your technical consultees of any negative impacts that would warrant refusal on this application. So I hope that covers all the points that were made, and I'm happy to answer any further questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, I can see obviously quite a few hands up, so we'll go around them as in the order that I've seen them. So Councillor Ellie-Chard first.
I'm referring to Councillor Cheryl Williams's mention about the bus. The 84, Cheryl, comes out of RHYL. It does a detour around Grosvenor, up Pennamice, where I live, and then it goes down to the Pines Caravan Park, which is the roundabout, and holidaymakers get on there. But actually, maybe we as a council need to get in touch with Arriva to extend the 84 and the 83 services, because we do know lots of people don't have cars and maybe they're not able to walk either. But yeah, okay.
Thank you. Cynghorwyr then, Miss Wynn.
Councillor Miss Wynn. Thank you, Jim. Just wants to confirmation, please. Not usual that we question or cross-section speakers that in favour or against. Did I hear correctly, or did I mishear that she referred to 30% of the houses being affordable ones? If so, then there's a bit of a difference between 32 houses and 11 affordable houses. Can we have an explanation, please?
I did think of that myself, actually. I thought I heard the same. So can officers just come in on that, just with the affordability side of things?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think there is a bit of a misunderstanding here in relation to the numbers. I know the Speaker had alluded to in a speech a 30% affordable housing, but the numbers actually proposed within the development, it actually shows meeting your current LDP policy, which is 10% in the provision of around about 11 affordable houses. So yeah, I think in relation to what you've got in your planning officer report, it's quite clear that you're meeting your LDP policy in terms of affordable housing, and that being 10%, not 30. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And I think yeah, that's fine. That's nice and clear. That it's obviously what the report says. Okay, Councillor Mark Young.
Okay, thank you, Chair. It's just clarification on the affordable housing bit. It talks about the approach is normal to spread affordable housing throughout the site. On this, obviously, the approach is quite standard to spread this housing throughout estates. So the reason for that, and are we happy with that? Because it is a big change on how we normally approach. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Mervyn Parry.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me? Just looking at the map on page, I think it's 127 on my paper anyway, showing the location of the site. I'm having site problems with my iPad and looking at the computer. I've seen looking for the SUDS report, or if there is one on this site for the flooding. But if you look on that map, you've got a pond to the left-hand side of it. You've got a pond to the right-hand side. In the field below it, you've got another pond. And in the field to the left of that, you've got another pond. So, you know, and I personally know this land reasonably well. But my concern is really that we get a reasonably good SUDS report on this site to make sure that it's safe, and for the drainage water off this site not to have an impact on the land behind it. So I'm sure Wayne Hope will have had a reasonable job on that. And could I also, as with some other developments, maybe ask that they condition fairly well on this site of the back fencing from the housing development to the agricultural land that's behind there. We see it in quite a few developments that are going up, and the back fencing is going on to the agricultural land or the private land behind them isn't always adequate enough to keep people where they should be. There's no footpaths there, I can't see any, so there's no reason why people should come out the back of those houses onto that land there. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do officers want to come in? There's been a few points raised there.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll come back in on those points that were raised. I think, yeah, in relation to Councillor Mark Young's query around the affordable housing spread across the site, I think what we've done is we've sort of analysed the overall Aberkinsey development from sort of phases 1 through to phases 5. And yeah, I think in this instance, they are going to be a bit more tightly packed together, but I think overall what we're saying is the conclusion is over the whole of the development site, the provision of affordable housing is adequately spread. So I think that's covered within the report. I think Councillor Mervyn Barry raised the issue around well, two things, one in relation to drainage and SUDs, and I agree. I think there is some sort of potential here for our SUDS approval body to look at the opportunities that there might be for existing ponds, etc., within the site area. But obviously, again, we keep reiterating at every planning committee about that being covered under separate legislation. But we will certainly make reference to that and liaise with Wayne Hope further down the line on that. I think, again, in relation to any sort of proposed fencing, they're normally covered within the sort of landscaping part of the scheme here. But again, Councillor Parry, if you feel as though it warrants a sort of specific additional condition, you could also propose, you know, details of fencing that might abut any sort of adjoining agricultural land to be submitted and agreed with us as part of an additional planning condition. So hopefully that's clear enough. Thank you.
Yes, if I can go back there, Chair, on that one, Paul, I'm quite happy for the local members to look at that one because it's not in my patch, but it's just a general comment. And I think this one in particular, because although it clashes the Aberkinsey site, it's very closely taking over Bryncunning completely now. But just there's a lot of houses there, and you know, a lot of trespass could come through there. There are footpaths in the area that need to be highlighted to the new residents of these houses, but coming over the back or through the fences, they just need to be secured, not just on this one, but on other developments as well. I'll pick that up on others as they come to us. Thank you.
No, that's nice and clear. Thank you. Okay, we've had quite a lot of discussion on it. We haven't had a proposal as yet. Obviously, we've had lots of discussion on people seemingly okay with the scheme, but with some various concerns about certain items on it. So we obviously need to get to a decision today. So does any member of the planning committee want to propose? Councillor Brian Jones, got your hand up now. We can't hear you, Brian, if you're speaking.
Yeah, can you hear me now, Chair?
Yep.
Yeah, I haven't got my camera on because I get poor reception, etc. So I will propose that we go with the offer recommendation on this, but I would like it minuted that the local members and the local members going forward are kept abreast of issues around the highways, around the drainage, around the transport, and I suppose I can say as well the other issues that were raised by Councillor Blakely on health and well-being, because this phase 5 will go ahead on top of everything else that's there. Going back to the dizzy bends, there will be more traffic, and this is what we don't know, and I know it's not in planning policy as such, but we never look at the big picture. You've got developments in Melodon that are coming along, big numbers. There's also another development very close to Aberkinsey, which is on the horizon. I think that's about 64 properties. And when you tumble it all in, and when you look at the infrastructure, the flood, factoring climate change, that we're getting these freak weather events, we're going to have problems, and we need to be tighter and more communicated of what's going to be happening going forward. But that aside, if you can put that in the minutes, that I think the local members for the rest of this council need to be kept in touch on any discussion and not just kept to officers on some of them points I've just run through. On the basis of that, I'll propose that we go with officer recommendation.
Okay, and are you okay including the additional condition on the blue sheets?
Yes, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so that's been proposed. Do we have a seconder for that?
Yeah.
Councillor Ellie Child, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, if we don't have any more speakers, we will go to the vote on that. I'm sure officers are happy with what Councillor Brian Jones said about keeping local members informed. And that obviously you've asked for that to be minuted, so that's not a problem either. Okay, so we'll go to the vote again, just to make it very, very clear. If you vote Orblyde for, you'll be voting for the application to grant the application in accordance with officer recommendation. If you vote against it, an Edbin, you are voting against officer recommendation to refuse the application, and then you obviously can abstain. Councillor Joan Butterfield.
For.
Thank you. That was 4. Councillor Ellie Chard.
4.
Councillor Ann Davis.
4.
Councillor Brian Jones.
4.
Councillor Tina Jones.
4.
Cynghorydd Gwyneth Kensler.
Orblyde.
4. Thank you.
Marston.
4.
4. Councillor Melvin Mile.
4.
Councillor Bob Murray.
4.
Councillor Mervyn Parry.
4.
Councillor Paul Penlington.
4.
Prendergast.
4.
Councillor Peter Scott.
4.
Councillor Tony Thomas.
4.
Hill.
4.
Councillor Joe Welch. 4. Cynghorydd Emily Swin.
Councillor Swin.
Very good.
Where is it? Sorry, 4. Thank you.
I haven't heard you, Mark.
Yes, 4.
Okay, so
Swin.
commensum total, we've got Orblyde for 18, and Edbin against 0.
Sorry,
Amanda
4.
abstained, 0. Therefore, that application has been granted in accordance with officer recommendation. Moving on to agenda item 8, which is on page 127 of your reports. The ward is RHYL South East. The ward member is Councillors Brian Blakely, Councillor Brian Jones, Councillor Cheryl Williams. The application is 45/2020/0844/PF. The proposal is the alteration and adaptation of existing nursing home to include extension of 2 additional bedrooms on the first floor, 2 fire escape stair enclosures and entrance canopy. The location is Sandy Lodge, 83 DYSERTH Road, RHYL LL 184DT. And we do have speakers on this, but we're going to go to Councillor Brian Jones initially before any other discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Unfortunately, I am going to propose yet another deferral on this application. The reason why is that on Sunday of this week, a local resident got in touch with me. I didn't know the gentleman, never met him before. He lives at the rear of Sandy Lodge. He's lived there for 20 odd years, something like that. He asked to see me. I went to see him on Monday. He'd had no official communication from Denbighshire, according to his version of events, about this development, and had only picked things up through hearsay, etc., etc. And when I went round to his property, he took me outside and he showed me where Sandy Lodge was situated in respect of his property. And he said to me, isn't that over intensification as it is today? And he requested a site visit to look at it. He's got a couple of neighbours that have also got the same concerns, and they would like a site visit to view the rear of Sandy Lodge, where this extension and what have you will be proposed to go. And that is the basis of the referral. But I do want to add, obviously there was a site visit last week, and in my view, it's the first one that I've been on. I must say I thought it was a bit of a fragmented site visit. We all seem to get split up.
We're not going to talk about the
Right. Okay then. Well, so that's my proposal. The reason for the deferral. But I just wanted to say, and I got reminded of this by the resident who I discussed it with and has asked me to put it forward, that we as councillors are elected members by the residents. We are their paid servants. If they ask us to do something, we should do within reason everything we can to satisfy their wishes, or go back to them and tell them why we can't do it. I did request of officers that this item was knocked off the agenda today, but the officer came back and said no, cannot do, that he needed to protect the council's interests, and he needed to be fair to the applicant. I sort of disagree with that. I think the officer should be, protecting the interests of the residents who ultimately pay our salaries and his salaries. And as far as being fair to the applicant, well, surely his surveyor should do that. So that's my proposal. I hope the planning committee can support me on it, that it's a deferral on the grounds of a local resident and a couple of his neighbours have asked that a site visit's carried out at his property, looking at the rear of Sandy Lodge. Now, I did send a photograph image through last night to all the planning committee, and you can clearly see from that it throws a different light on the matter as opposed to.
We're not going to discuss any of the merit of whether it is.
Okay, then. Well, that's the proposal for the deferral, then, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, I've got a couple of hands up. I know Paul Mead will want to come in. Councillor Mark Young, did you want to come in specifically on the deferral?
Yeah, and thanks for that, Chair. And I just want to raise the point of the fairness to the applicant. So I hear what Councillor Jones is saying, but this would be the fourth time. So I just want officers and the legal advice on the fairness of this. It's disappointing if someone says they don't know about something, but I'm guessing site notices do go out at the beginning of this process. This is the fourth time. Oh, well, hang on, please. So I just want to touch base, to be fair, on the fairness to the applicant on this, please. So that's not an opinion, it's just a request off officers and the legal officer, please.
Yeah, no. I know Paul Mead's got some information on the consultation process, so he might enlighten us with that.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Based on the sort of late information that was provided to us from Councillor Brian Jones, we have checked our system in terms of the formal letters of consultation that went out to neighbours, and it shows that the resident in question was a letter was sent. Whether he received it or not, that's unfortunately out of our hands, but a number of letters of consultation have gone out to residents in the area. So I think in relation to a request for deferral on the fact of lack of consultation, I think we'd have to try and resist that. I think the fact as well that within the report there's been a number of residents that have written in to us, and a number of the material considerations that this particular resident might be raising now in terms of impact on the neighbours, over intensification, proximity, etc. They're all covered really within the report. So we're not going to really be adding anything to the report if we defer for another site visit. And as you say, this would be the fourth deferral. And I think from a legal perspective, our legal officer would probably outline what the risks are in that, in relation to being fair to residents, to members, and to the applicant as well. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, no, thank you. Okay, so clear that the resident in question has been consulted. I mean, if we just go back sorry, I went off there. If we just go back pre-COVID, it was Denbighshire. We didn't, you didn't just request a site visit on the day or even a couple of days before before a planning application was heard. That's why Judith sends out the list 3 weeks before, is because we obviously don't, that's the time when then applications can be pulled, and we've been very, very good at that over the years in Denbighshire of not just deferring ones that come to planning committee on the day, because it's not good for anyone really. But obviously that's just a general point. Obviously the COVID has had implications that have been sort of out of our hand, and but there we go. Tim, do you want to come in on anything? Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Just to sort of echo what Paul Mead has said there before. I think this is a proposal for it to be deferred. Obviously, it's already been deferred 4 times. There is now a very real risk that could be challenged if that was decided upon, and for non-determination, and there would no doubt be an application for costs, and that would be in respect of unreasonable conduct. I think the unreasonable conduct potential risk would be in relation to the resident concerned has already received correspondence from the local planning authority. Now, we don't know whether he received it, but there is evidence that he was sent correspondence, and the issue, if you want, the tangible issue of what this is about, frankly, is in relation to over intensification, and that is clearly set out in the reports and the paperwork that you have. So, given the circumstances, I think there is a real risk if the matter is deferred again. There's a real risk that there'd be an appeal on the basis of non-determination, and there is a very real, tangible risk of costs being awarded against the council in respect of unreasonable conduct, regrettably. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to go to the vote. We've obviously had a proposal for deferral. We need a seconder. So if anyone wants to unmute and second that proposal for a deferral.
I'll second, Peter.
Peter Scott. Okay, thank you. So we're going to go to the vote. This is very, very clear. This is not about the application. This is about the deferral. So for this one, you are going to vote or blide or for. That will be for deferral. You are going to vote an admin against if you are against the deferral and you want to hear the item today. And then you've got obviously abstain. So I'm going to say it really, really clearly. Again, or blide for. For will be for deferral. An admin against will be against deferral to hear the item today. And then obviously abstain. Okay?
Yeah.
Councillor Jones.
Sorry, Chair. For
deferral. Okay. Councillor Ellie Chard.
Against.
Thank you. Against. Councillor Ann Davis.
For.
Councillor Brian Jones.
For.
Councillor Tina Jones.
For.
Councillor Kinghorrid Gwyneth Kensler.
And there have been.
Against.
Councillor Christine Marston.
For.
Yes, for. Councillor Melvin Mile.
or deferral.
For deferral. Okay. Councillor Bob Murray.
Where's Bob? Oh, where's Bob?
Bob gone.
Oh, flip.
Oh, sorry.
For deferral, Bob, yeah?
Yeah.
Yep, for deferral, okay. Councillor Mervyn Parry.
I'll go for deferral then.
Okay, for deferral. Councillor Paul Penlington.
Against.
Councillor Pete Prendergast.
For.
For deferral. Okay, Councillor Peter Scott.
For.
Councillor Tony Thomas. Tony.
For.
Okay, Councillor Julian Thompson.
For.
For deferral. Councillor Joe Welch against. Kinghorrid Emrys Wynn.
And admin.
Against. Thank you.
Against.
Okay, so we have 12 that are for deferral, 6 that are against deferral, and 0 abstain. Therefore, that item has been deferred. So we are not having any further discussion on it. So we are moving on to the last item on the agenda, which is agenda item number 9, which is on page 153 of our reports. The ward is Tremechion. The ward member is Councillor Christine Marston. The application number is 47/2021/0257/PF. The proposal is the erection of rear 2-storey extension with adjoining single-storey extension. The location is 2 BRYN IBOD WAEN, St ASAPH LL17 ODY. We do have there was a site visit for this one, and that we do also have a public speaker. So the public speaker is a Paul Patterson. So when you are ready, Paul, you have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Hi everyone. So yeah, I'm Paul Patterson in regards to the planning application for number 2 BRYN IBOD. The reason we want to do the planning application is we're a growing family of 4. We've recently had a baby. So we just need a little extra space in our house. It's quite a small 3-bedroom semi-detached with some small bedrooms. So we'd just like to make our master bedroom big enough to fit a wardrobe in the double-storey extension. And downstairs, just bring our kitchen out a little bit and so have some patio doors into the garden and a little playroom for our children. The reason why I think we've been brought into this meeting was for a few remarks, objections made by our neighbour. So we've had 2 site visits, one by the planning officer and then one by the planning officers, and then some of the council members as well. One of the points was regarding there being an overdevelopment of the site. It was noted by the planning officer that I think we're going to cover up 25% of the land that's here. So it's by no means an overdevelopment of the site. Also, there was some issue raised regarding the drainage. We've got public drainage. There's 4 houses here, and they run to a septic tank. We're not going anywhere near that. That's not going to be disturbed at all. It's only our own private drains that are going to be built over, but that's a separate issue with regards to planning. The double-storey part of our extension is sort of in the middle of our property, in the middle of our land, so it's as far away as possible from both of our neighbours. It's been built with them in mind, as not to be sort of overbearing for them at all. And the upstairs windows, a point was raised regarding those, but the location of those is only changing in respect to their coming further out. Just the angle of them hasn't been changed, and they're no more overlooking than they were before. Yeah, I think that's all I've got to say. And like it's been mentioned in your case notes, that the planning officer that's visited has recommended that it should be allowed to go ahead. So yeah, thank you very much for your time. Cheers.
Thank you. Okay, there is quite a lot of information on the blue sheets, as you will see. So there was a site visit. Does anyone, apart from the local member, who was on the site visit, want to comment on that before Councillor Ellie-Chard? Yep.
Yeah, just to say, all members, that I've seen, I've had the official paperwork here, and I think it'll be rather nice. And I don't think it's going to be overbearing for the extensions for the neighbours. Okay, it's not a big block with a flat roof on top. It's a nice shaped extension, and I think it'll be very useful and nice for a family to live there. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, just to be aware as well, we were sent an email by, I think, the next door neighbour. Obviously, he hasn't come on and spoken against, but I think you probably will receive that yesterday, just for your information. Councillor Christine Marston, come in.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to, obviously we did have a site visit, and it was just to sort of look at the sort of what was proposed in terms of size and location, the relationship between the 2 sort of neighbouring properties either side of the applicant's house, and the sort of drainage and the mains water that had been mentioned. I do appreciate Denise Shaw, the planning officer. She did give additional sort of clarification, the sort of map she drew up in our sort of officer's report, and the additional photos, which I do appreciate and I thank her for. I just would like officers to clarify the concerns raised by the immediate neighbour on why does the 45-degree rule not apply to the upstairs accommodation, and also concerns raised about the mains water and the sewerage, which will be, I presume, built over. So can officers please just clarify on that, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, in relation to the 45-degree rule, as we always say, that's guidance within our supplementary planning note, and it specifically that note specifically states that it's the 45-degree line is taken from the ground floor window of the neighbouring properties. The reason for that is obviously up to 4 metres along a single story may well be permitted development, so it wouldn't actually bite at that point either. This is only for applications for planning permission. I suppose the logic is when you look at it, you take it from the ground floor window because, for example, a 2-story extension has more chance to overshadow the ground floor than it would a sort of similar upper floor. So if you look at the diagrams or the drawings on page 187, you sort of get a feel for how the ground floor would be more overshadowed. I think if you drew a 45-degree line from an upper floor window, the 45-degree, it wouldn't necessarily mean that it would be overshadowed. If you imagine where a neighbouring window would be on that rear elevation at first floor, there's plenty of daylight above it still. So it's to do with overshadowing of windows. And in this case, it's quite clear that you take both your neighbours' ground floor windows adjacent to that property, that it complies with the 45-degree rule. So based on our own guidance about how you implement the 45-degree rule, officers have considered that the proposal is acceptable in terms of that. Regarding the drainage, I think when we were on the site panel, we did observe a manhole that was actually below roughly where the extension was going to go. Now, we've looked into this further since then, and they're private drains, they're not Welsh water drains. And as Mr. Patterson, the applicant, has just commented, that connection is actually part of where their drain run, the drains from their own house actually connect and then run down to the mains line along the back. It should be important to note, though, that fundamentally, that's not an issue for us. They will be protected by either other secondary legislation or covenants within their dwelling on the purchase of their property. So as a planning authority, we can advise them informally, well, you've got to make sure you've got all your other agreements in place before you build over a sewer, but it's not a reason for us to refuse this application or to throw the application out. So hopefully that answers your questions, Councillor Marston. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I feel that a precedent has been set with 2 other dwellings out of the 4 that have already extended to the rear, but I do appreciate that they are a single story. The applicant has stepped the extension by having the 2-story extension skirted by the sort of single story on either side. And as officers are already reassured committee that the drains and water mains will be dealt with by other legislation. So can I go with officer recommendation and go to propose that we grant this application? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Do we have a seconder for that?
I'll second again. Sorry. Well, you go, Jen. Anne.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, happy to support Christine. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I've got one hand up and it's from a member outside the committee. So I'll bring in Tisha. Question, Medic?
Well,
Mary, do you have a question? Well, just I was on site, wasn't I, Mr. Chairman? And having looked at the area, and I feel same as the other 2 councillors that it's acceptable. The applicant has tried to conform with the wishes of residents 1 and 3 in terms of the height, width, and of the extension. So I believe that you should conform with go along with the officers. Thank you.
Okay, so we've had a proposal 4, we've had a seconder. So we don't need to do anything other than go to the vote if everyone is happy with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, just for making it very, very clear. So if vote Orblyde for, you'll be voting for the application in accordance with officer recommendation. If you vote an Edbin against, you'll be going against officer recommendation to refuse the application. Okay, so we'll do it again in alphabetical order. Councillor Joan Butterfield.
I'm in favour, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Ellie Chard.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Ann Davis.
For.
Brian Jones.
For.
Haven't heard you yet, Tina, sorry.
Sorry, is that me?
Yep.
Joe, yeah, Chair.
Yes.
4.
4, okay.
Yes.
Horace Gwyneth Kensler.
Obliged. 4, thank you.
Christine Marston.
4.
Okay, that's 4. Councillor Melvin Mile.
4.
Councillor Bob Murray.
4.
Councillor Melvin Parry.
There you go.
Haven't heard you, Mervyn. You're on mute if you.
4.
4.
Councillor Paul Penlington.
4.
Councillor Pete Prendergast.
4.
Councillor Peter Scott.
4.
Councillor Tony Thomas.
4.
Councillor Julian Thompson Hill.
4.
Councillor Joe Welch. 4. Cynghoredd Emrys Wyn.
Councillor Muswin. 4.
Mark Ewan.
4.
Okay. We have 18 for, 0 against, 0 abstain. Therefore, that application has been granted in accordance with officer recommendation. And there are no other reports or anything like that. So that's it. Time to say goodbye. Thank you very much for today. See you in September sometime for the next planning anyway.
Bye all.
Next
Bye, everybody.